So this is a story that's been going around the intertubes for a few days, and Eden Knight was a trans girl, young trans woman who has a bit of a tragic story, and it's a good example of what happens basically when you live in a theocracy. So I think it might be better if we actually just read the final message from Eden Knight. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. This hit Twitter. I'll put this down in the chat for you guys as well, so that if you want to read this on your own later. But this has been making the rounds in, progressive circles here for a few days, and I think it's definitely something that we should share, and we should spread around so people can, hear what this woman wanted to say. So this is Eden Knight here. Final message. Hi. If you're reading this, I've already killed myself. I have given life every opportunity. I have given myself every chance to get better, but I couldn't do it. Wasn't strong enough. I don't think there was a universe where I was ever strong enough to survive this. Why? Sometime in the summer, I was contacted by Michael Polchiato, a cybersecurity guy, through an in real life friend who claimed he was a fixer and wanted to fix the issue that was between me and my parents. I thought this was impossible. I'm transgender and they are strict conservative Muslims, but I decided to give it a shot because it can't hurt, right, Lamau? Over the next couple of months, I had called Michael Polcato and his associate Ellen. These calls seemed innocuous and honestly pretty helpful. It was mainly questions about my safety and whether I had my needs met at the place I was staying at. Towards the end of the stay at my friend's place, I had witnessed a traumatic event and was already in a bad place mentally. Michael took note of this and decided to push me to leave Georgia and move back to Virginia. Michael and Ellen, along with a Saudi lawyer named Bader, met me at the train station, and I was taken to a hotel and allowed to experience DC. Genuinely was optimistic and believed this could work. God wish I wasn't so fucking stupid. At this point, the only person in that group I was in contact with was Bader, the Saudi lawyer. Bader, throughout this entire time, in his weird way, tried to get me to detransition. First, he pampered me. He got me an apartment temporarily, took me out to eat, took me to therapists, but over time, the more conversations I had with him in person, the more I realized what he was trying to do. He tried to get me to be normal, gave me examples of feminine men, said they are transgender but they're hiding it, and that it's better to hide it. Told me stories personally about people he knew that successfully hid it. Repeated constantly that I can just hold two lives, the female me and the male me. Constantly said I look like a man, always talked down on my appearance, bought me masculine clothing and tried to throw away all of my feminine clothing. At every step of the way, he tried to detransition me. I had a breakdown over this and bombarded Michael Polchiato and Ellen with texts about what was happening. They did not respond. I didn't realize fast enough what was happening because I'm fucking stupid. At a certain point, realized I was entirely dependent on Bader for food and shelter, and that if I ran away, he could easily find my location. And since I was illegal, I would have just been deported to Saudi Arabia, to Saudi. I subconsciously gave up. I was too tired. I did everything he asked me. I cut my hair, stopped taking estrogen, changed my wardrobe. I met my dad, and then I had another breakdown. My mom kept telling me to repent or I was going to hell. And I did. I repented. I believed I was going to hell so much that I read the entire Quran front to back in a couple of days. Crying the entire fucking time about what a disgusting thing I am, and I didn't sleep. Repented, and I was broken. Bader then booked a flight back to Saudi Arabia, and I came back. The first month was fine. Okay even. I was on edge the entire time, but I was treated like I was going to run away at any second by my family. Then came the second month. At this point, I was subjected to daily searches of my belongings. My mom searched all of my electronics whenever she got the chance. I was berated for being a freak. My mom found my private photos. My dad called me a failure and an abomination. I was told that Michael, Ellen, and Beta were actually all specifically hired to get me back, and that there was no escape from my situation. I was destroyed, but I wanted to keep going. After the first time they found my HRT, it was traumatizing, but I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to live if I couldn't transition. Then the second time came after that. I took a month break off of HRT and got back on it. They found my HRT again, and I am done fighting. I wasn't always a good or even decent person at times. I was a fucking asshole and a disgusting human being, but there were times I felt like I was good. I don't understand why I was given this life with these circumstances. Every day hurts. Every second stings. Excuse me. I have tried killing myself in the past, but every single time I was still holding on by a thread somewhere deep inside me. I think that's why I survived them. This time I am done. I am tired. Message to the people I love. To my friends, to the people who chose to be my family, to my girlfriend, to everyone who has shown me kindness in this life, I sincerely thank you. You made an unbearable existence bearable at times. I am deeply sorry I have disappointed you all. Wish things were different. I wish this message was a message about how I won, how I escaped and built a successful life, how I managed to get FFS, SRS, and beat my dysphoria. I wish I was speaking to you about how proud I am of myself to have done the impossible, but that's not my reality. Wish this world wasn't so fucking comically cruel. I am actually laughing writing this sentence. It's unironically ridiculous how bad my luck has been the last couple of weeks. Someone just walked past my car and glanced at me. I wonder if they know I'm gonna kill myself. Wonder what they would think about me if they knew who I was. If they knew who I actually was. Wanted to be a leader for people like me, but that wasn't going to happen. Hope the world gets better for us. I hope our people get old. I hope we get to see our kids grow up and fight for us. I hope for trans rights worldwide. Goodbye. Pretty heartbreaking stuff there, folks. And of course, Eden Knight is no longer with us. I didn't really look up the details on that, and I don't really care to look those details up. It's enough for me to know that actually happened, and it's a travesty. I don't want to know the exact details of what happened and what she did. It's just the fact that this even happened is abhorrent. It's a good example of what can happen when you live, when your nation is run by a, theocratic hellscape. That's what it is. I mean, it's what happens when the religious people run everything and they can just force their will on everybody else. Here's the thing in Saudi Arabia, because that's where Eden Knight was from, where she went back to, and where she ultimately ended her life. Right. Just to kind of give you an idea of what Saudi Arabia is like and how they treat gay and trans and bi and the LGBT community there. Acts of homosexuality in Saudi Arabia can be punished with fines, chemical castration, flogging, life imprisonment, or even the death penalty. Not to mention all the beatings and torture one will endure while they are being incarcerated. Right? Saudi Arabia is a Sharia law country. That is to say that they don't have a criminal justice code. There's no like laws like secular laws when it comes to criminality in Saudi Arabia. What happens is that they bring you before a judge. If you get caught doing anything wrong in Saudi Arabia, they bring you before a judge, and then the judge interprets the Quran, looks up an appropriate passage in the Quran, and then makes their own personal judgment as to what your punishment should be. Right? So judges in Saudi Arabia are not confined by any precedent. No, past decisions have any bearing on anything else. So every single punishment there, every sentence is like its own sort of unique decision, which is sort of like, so even if you have like the same case, like a similar case, there can be vastly different different sentences handed down for the exact same thing, right? Which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. I mean, at least, if you'd say the laws in the United States aren't fair sometimes, and a lot of the time, right? But at least they're consistent. At least and that's one of the big sort of like you know travesties in this country is that, for example, certain people, depending on their skin color, will get harsher sentences for the exact same crime. That's a big problem that we have in this country, right? Well, in Saudi Arabia, it's just different depending on whatever the whim of the judge is. So if the judge decides, oh, this guy, no punishment at all, he gets off scot-free. This guy over here, I don't like him, he gets 50 lashes. They whip people in Saudi Arabia. Or this guy over here, he's a little too gay for my liking, we're gonna behead him. I'm not even kidding. Beheading is how they fucking execute people. In Saudi Arabia, you can be beheaded for witchcraft, for fuck's sake. Witchcraft. It's like shit that's not even real. They'll murder you for that, right? So it's not to say that there aren't guidelines. In 1928, apparently, the Saudi Judicial Board advised judges to look for guidance in two books by a Hannibalite jurist who lived in the 17th century. So that's what they're getting their guidance for their laws from. They're going back 200-300 years and searching through books and laws and treaties and shit, treaties and fucking essays and stuff from hundreds of years ago in order to interpret the Quran for the modern day. So that's what's happening in fucking Saudi Arabia. In 2017, the way that this can, be interpreted, it's widely different depending on who gets caught. So, for example, in 2017, two transgender Pakistanis were allegedly bound up into burlap sacks and beaten with sticks until they were killed by police as a punishment for being transgender, right? Of course, the Saudi police deny that happened, but remember, this is a country where they'll just murder people. Like, you remember that journalist Khashoggi? They waited until he went into the Saudi embassy and just murdered him. He walked in, he never walked out. And they chopped his body up or some shit, dissolved it in acid apparently, got away scot-free with it. That's the kind of country that Saudi Arabia is, right? This is what happens when when you have a theocracy, right? And if you think that shit won't happen here, it will. So a few other things about Eden Knight and her case. Apparently, the guy Michael Pokalyeko, whoever that guy is, runs a company, a cybersecurity firm called Special Investigations Limited Company, right? And Eden's father is the deputy governor for research and international affairs at the Saudi Royal Bank. So, the Saudi Central Bank, excuse me. So they were pretty pricey. So basically, rich daddy, with his thousands and if not millions of dollars, hires a cybersecurity firm, basically a private investigator, right, to go and trick Eden Knight into going back to Saudi Arabia, where they can forcibly detransition her, right? And because it's Saudi Arabia, she's got absolutely no choice. She has to. If she doesn't detransition, she could potentially face the death penalty. Here's the thing, her parents probably thought they were doing the right thing by forcing this on her because of their religion. And this is why it's important. This is why it's important where religion and government need to be separate. So everybody talks about like why is that, such an important thing in our country? Why like the Christians and stuff are always saying shit like, the Constitution doesn't actually have a separation of church and state. That's just a misconception. It's like, no, in real life it does. It's the very first law, in the very first right in the Bill of Rights. Excuse me. The very first one. Congress will make no law, right, endorsing the establishment of religion. It even becomes before freedom of speech in that. That's how important our founding fathers thought this was, is that the ability for the government to not enforce one religion over another is more important than free speech, right? If they thought it was less important, they would have put free speech first. They didn't. They put freedom of, because you know what it is? It's freedom of religion. That's what the First Amendment is. It's not, it's not freedom, freedom to impose your religion on everybody else, right? It's freedom to express whatever religion you have, which includes not having a religion. So the only way that you can be free to express whatever you want, whatever religion you want, the only way that you can be free to do that, the only way that you can maintain that in a society is by not encoding religious laws into secular laws, right? That's the only way because the minute you do that, you're forcing your religion on somebody else, right? That's what this is. That's what happened to Eden Knight. Eden Knight had someone else's religion forced upon her. Whether she was a believer or not, it doesn't matter. If she actually was a practicing Muslim, doesn't fucking matter, right? Somebody else's religion was forced upon her, and it had deadly consequences, right? If you think that can't happen here, it will, and it is happening. Because this is what we've been talking about this entire stream, when we were talking about, abortion rights being taken away in Wyoming, right? And Texas. We're talking about, trans girls not being able to compete in sports, right? Talking about Kirk Cameron and his cohorts of merry band of bigots going around and demonizing trans people and trying to forcing his conservative Christian bullshit onto small children at libraries, right? What is that? That's people using the government, attempting to use the government at least, to force their religious views and practices on everybody else. And if we let them take over, our country will turn into Saudi Arabia. How long before people who don't go to church start getting fined, right? How long before someone who picks up sticks on the Sabbath gets stoned to death, right? How long before someone who doesn't say Merry Christmas at a Starbucks gets fucking arrested? Right? Like, sir, you think this won't happen, right? You think this is ridiculous. I'm being hyperbolic. I'm not being hyperbolic. There are countries on this earth where that's what it's like. Saudi Arabia is one of those. Right? It is illegal to have a church, a Christian church in Saudi Arabia. Illegal. It's illegal to have any other competing religion at all in Saudi Arabia. At all. There are no churches. There are no Christian churches. There are no synagogues. There are no Buddhist temples, right? There are no Hindu temples. There's no nothing in Saudi Arabia. All there are mosques. Everyone is a Muslim, right? And if you step out of line, you speak up, you try to do something about that, you pay the consequences. Is that what you want in the United States? We've already shown that we've got the people here have the will to make that happen. The Christians here, the conservative Christian evangelicals, right? With the emphasis on the conservative part. They've already shown that they're willing, ready, and able, and in some instances chomping at the bit to make that happen, right? They're chomping at the bit. They want to go out and start murdering people. And like I said before, like I said last week too, it's not every single Christian. There are plenty of decent Christians out there who would never even think of doing this. There are millions and millions of decent people who believe in Jesus Christ, who would never force their will on anyone else, right? But those people seem to be becoming a minority. They're not politically active. The crazies out there who are going out and doing shit like blowing up power stations to stop drag shows, who are going into gay bars and murdering 50 people, right? Those seem to be the ones who are the loudest. Those are the ones who are getting on the air. They're getting the airtime. They're the ones who are passing their laws, right? The politicians are catering to those crazy fucking people because they get elected, right? The conservative media is catering to those people because it makes them rich, gets them money, gets them those outrage clicks, right? There's only so much you can only go on and enrage people for so long before it hits a boiling point. And I think if you were to ask me 10 years ago, I would have said, nah, these people are ineffectual. You got really nothing to worry about it. Yeah, keep an eye on them, but it's not a big deal. I don't think so. I think we're hitting that point where it's becoming a big deal. And the potential for mass violence is very, very, very large now. And could very well happen soon. I mean, what form is that going to take? How organized will it be? I can't tell you. And how prevalent it'll be, I can't tell you that. But this is some danger. We're living in dangerous times here, folks. A highly religious, highly bigoted, highly motivated population who are also armed. Who are also armed and have no compunction about murdering people to get their way and impose their will on other people. That's a tinderbox waiting for a spark. So we live in interesting times, unfortunately. And this is once again why it matters that, you got to get out, you got to be politically active, you got to vote, right? Eden Knight was fine in the United States. She was here in this country, she was fine. She was living her life, right? Maybe she had, other problems, right? But people forcing her to detransition wasn't one of them. Being worried about being executed for being trans wasn't one of them in the United States, right? If we want it to stay that way, if we want to protect people like Eden Knight, you have to get involved politically, right? And it's not just voting. Voting is not the only way to be involved politically, although it's a major way, and everybody should vote in every single election. But it's not the only way that you stay involved, Keep yourself informed, spread awareness about things, donate your time and your money to politicians, donate it to causes that you think that you support, right? When you can, go out and volunteer if that's a thing that you can do. Volunteer for stuff. If you can't volunteer, it's perfectly acceptable just to donate money to causes, right? Perfectly acceptable. Not everybody has the time to go out and actually be an activist. Not everybody has the time or the ability to go out and protest stuff like that. Next best thing you can do is give money to different groups that you support. You know, political parties, sure. Politicians, sure, but also non-governmental organizations. You know, things like Planned Parenthood and the ACLU and stuff like that. Groups that you think are doing a good job, right? And get involved. You know, stay active, and also really importantly, talk to your friends and family. You know, about stuff like this. If you've got a cousin or an uncle or something like that, and they're like, you know, part of the Alex Jones crowd, whatever, believing in idiotic conspiracy theories, you know, trying to fucking convert you or whatever, talk to those people, right? Talk to those people. Explain to them your position. Explain to them why you support things like trans rights and gay rights. Why you want things like, you know, labor unions. You know, why you think having like higher wages is more important, and how censorship's bad, and all the other things that you support. You know, whatever it is you support, right? You know, because it'll never end. That's the other thing, folks. It will never end. We'll be arguing about this shit forever, and even after we die and forever, right? What really matters is what you do here and now to help people out there, right? Leave the world a better place than when you came in. Because if you just sit back and you do nothing, and the shit deteriorates into you know, some nightmare theocratic hellscape out there, right? There'll be plenty of blame to go around, but none of that's going to do anything to fix it. You want to fix how shitty the world is, you have to actually contribute. Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.